Being here today. We are super excited to preview an incredible event that we have this summer. Coming to you live from Madison Square Garden on June 14th. We have some of the biggest stars in the business battling it out right here in New York. Headlining this event is our light heavyweight feature, Machida versus Sonnen, the Dragon versus the American Gangster, two legends, each with their own distinct style, crossing paths in the cage for the first time ever. Sure to be a fight that's huge, and we're thrilled that both of these guys could be here with us today. And also here with us is Naaman Gracie, who'll be facing off against the winner of McDonald versus Fitch in the semifinals of Bellator's Welterweight World Grand Prix. All this action is part of a stacked card that Scott and his team have put together for Bellator's return to MSG after making its historic debut there in 2017. And I also want to highlight that this event's going to be exclusively on DAZN, our streaming partner. We're less than a year into this partnership, and it's already proven to be a big difference maker for Viacom and for Bellator. So we're really happy that Juan Delgado, the CEO of Perform Media and one of the architects with me of the Bellator DAZN partnership, is going to be here with us in a couple minutes giving some remarks. And with the power of DAZN and Viacom's Paramount Networks, which also airs Bellator, Bellator is now in 160 countries and available to over 1 billion people and continuing to grow. We're bringing the best of MMA to fans across viewing platforms from television to streaming. At the same time, we're continuing to sell out venues worldwide from LA to Berlin. Of course, none of this would be possible without the leadership of my friend Scott Coker. Under Scott, we've quickly turned Bellator into a truly global destination for the most exciting live entertainment and combat sports. And with that, thanks again for joining us, and I'll turn it over to Juan.
Thank you, Wade. Morning, everybody. So we're very excited to be partnering with Bellator on their return to New York City on June 14th, streaming live exclusively on DAZN, but I'll let Scott focus on the details of that particular event. What I would like to focus your attention on for the next 180 seconds is what we have coming up on DAZN over the rest of the spring and early summer, where we are putting together a pretty impressive slate of fight nights of pay-per-view level at a accessible price for sports fans. So following or starting with April 27th out of San Jose with our friends from Bellator, following that on May 11th from Chicago. And then in parallel, we've put together an impressive slate of boxing bouts, starting with the world phenomenon Canelo Alvarez taking on Danny Jacobs from Las Vegas on May 4th, streaming exclusively live on DAZN, followed by the debut of 2018 fighter of the year, Alexander Usyk, on May 25th. And then following that, the awaited heavyweight showdown between Anthony Joshua and Baby Miller on June 4th, streaming live on DAZN from New York City. So that's a pretty impressive slate of fight nights over the next 6 to 8 weeks, which we expect to top up with our recently announced partnership with Triple G, where we're hoping to announce his upcoming fight in the next few weeks. If you do the math, it is 6 pay-per-view level fight nights over the next few weeks, which fight sports fans will get to access at the fraction of the cost of a pay-per-view fight, delivering on our promise to give fight sports fans access to the fights they want, and with our friends at Bellator putting together fight nights which consumers and fight sports fans want to see over the next few months. So with that, I'll hand it over to Scott to get into the details of our June 14th fight night.
Like to just welcome everybody to our media day and our press conference. We got some amazing fighters for you guys to come here and speak to. Ask some good questions. It's always entertaining with Chael and the gang and Dylan. So good afternoon or good morning. And I'd like to thank our sponsors to begin with. We have Monster Energy has been a great sponsor for Bellator, Boost Mobile, AutoZone, and Miller Lite. And we look forward to putting on an amazing fight on June 14th at MSG, our return to New York City. But before we go into that, I think it's been a very good year for Bellator. We've been checking out the boxes. We crowned a new heavyweight champion in January, Mr. Ryan Bader. Now he's a two-division champion, and we're gonna have some really good fights that we're gonna put him in this year. So look forward to seeing him fight a couple times in 2019. We also saw the continuation of the welterweight tournament, which we have Neiman Gracie here to answer some questions about his potential opponent. And that will finish hopefully in December in a fight that 50 Cent will come out and award $1 million prize money to the winner of that tournament. And then later this year, which we've already talked about in the media, is the 16-man featherweight tournament, which will begin sometime in the fall, possibly in October. And that will be exciting because, you know, to me, martial arts and tournaments go hand in hand. And I think that a 60-man tournament, I think the fans will appreciate. And really how we came about the 60-man tournament is we started adding up all of our great fighters in featherweight division. We just said, look, we just have too many great fighters. We need to increase it. So we will have a 16-man tournament, and all the fighters will fight a single elimination bout on the same night, and then the tournament will begin, the second round of the tournament will begin sometime, let's say, in December. So it's going to be an amazing fall for Bellator. The European Series, we kicked off the European Series with a fight card in Newcastle, which sold out. Also, we did a fight in Dublin in front of 8,500 fans with James Gallagher, also sold out. So I feel like the European Series is doing very well. The next fight is in Birmingham on May 4th, and then we just hosted the London press conference with Gegard Mousasi and Mr. Lovato Jr. will fight on June 22nd at the SSC Wembley Arena. TV partners, you know, it's always special to come into this building because when I think about mixed martial arts, you know, the history starts here. And we've talked about that and why I feel that way. And Viacom has been such a great supporter before with Spike TV, which eventually led to Paramount. But without Spike TV's involvement, you know, and certain executives that were here, Kevin Kay, mixed martial arts might not be where it is today. So it's a very special time, you know, for us to take Viacom, the contribution, the support that we get from the parent company is very much appreciated. And Mr. Wade Davis, who opened the press conference, has been a great supporter. He's always given us, you know, a lot of, you know, support in different ways throughout the company. And, you know, we're always appreciative of that because when you have a company like Viacom behind a mixed martial arts brand, it's a great day because around the world, we are airing in 163 countries. And I'd say half of those really are Viacom-owned networks, like Channel 5. It's owned by Viacom, like the Benelux Spike TV deal, or the deal that we have in Southeast Asia. So it's been a great relationship. It's made things a lot easier for the expansion of the brand, and we're just going to keep going from here. Which brings us today, back to Madison Square Garden on June 14th. The last time we were there, we saw Chael settle his grudge match against Wanderlei Silva. We saw Matt Mitrione knock out Fader in one of the craziest dual knockouts I've seen ever in my 34 years of the fight business. And Heather Hardy and Neiman Gracie both celebrated victories in front of their hometown crowds. At this time, I'd like to just open up with the video. We had a nice digital piece that our team made, and if you guys would play it, let's let the media check it out. Great. This event will be aired exclusively on DAZN. It'll have a 10 p.m. Start time with the prelims starting at 7 o'clock. So again, DAZN has been a great partner. We started with them on September 28th for the launch of our welterweight tournament. And I'd like to thank them and Juan and Joe and Gemma and everybody at DAZN for being such a great contributor to not just boxing and martial arts, but combat sports in general. So thank you, DAZN, and it'll be a great event exclusively on DAZN on June 14th from MSG. At this time, let's just bring out the fighters. Ryan, if you could bring out the fighters, let's get them seated. At this time, why don't we just open it up for questions from the media?
Hey there, Fernando from MMAnews.com. My first question is for you, Scott. This is the second time that Bellator has gone to Madison Square Garden, and for the second time, Chael Sonnen is competing in the featured bout. So what is it about him that, you really trust with the main event to headline an MSG card?
Well, listen, Chael is an icon in the sport, and he always brings it, and he always, whether it's win, lose, or draw, he always brings it, and he always has a good game. So to me, anytime Chael could be involved in a fight, whether it's, in New York or California or wherever he fights, I mean, it's always, I know it's going to be a good matchup. And Lyoto and Chael, this is why we signed both of these guys, it's because we put them in big fights. And this is a fight that I've been looking forward to announcing for a couple months. So we're expecting a great matchup for our main event on June 14th.
And Chael, I know that in the past you've said it doesn't matter the venue, you'll fight anywhere. But does it mean anything to you that Bellator has turned to you for a second time for the MSG show?
That's interesting. I'm not sure. I'm trying to reflect on that question. I just want to compete. I really do. I just want to compete. To be the main event is very flattering to take on Machida. I wouldn't manufacture any conflict with Machida. I've known him for a number of years. He's very, very gentleman to me, but he does have a history with my teammates. Dan Henderson, he knocked out Randy Couture's tooth. Maybe that doesn't upset Randy, but it upsets me. It's upset me for a number of years. And I always had my eye on Machida, but we're separated in organizations. We're separated in weight classes. He came over here at 185 pounds, so I didn't know this was going to happen. But to your question directly about the venue, I don't know that it's as important to me. But being able to compete, and that's something special.
And Neiman Gracie, you last fought back in December, and you're going to be fighting the winner of McDonald versus Fitch, and they're going to have a quick turnaround. Do you think that that's going to play to your advantage, or are you not really of that mindset?
Actually, if they train smart, I think they will be able to come in 100%, and I want them to come 100%, whoever wins the fight, because I don't want no excuses after we fight, So I hope that nobody gets injured, and whoever wins, I'll be ready for them.
And my last question is back to Scott. Scott, I know that this is the last thing you want to think about right now, but in the event that the winner of Rory McDonald versus John Fitch, let's say they're not medically cleared in time for this event, what would happen? Would the title holder be stripped at that point?
You're right. I don't want to think about that right now at this point. So, no, but, in all fairness, we've been through this before. I mean, when I was working at K1, you had what they call a survivor rule. So if one of the fighters gets hurt, can't advance, then the survivor would continue on in the tournament. But, we're going to keep all of our options open. So if one of the fighters can't continue, then we'll just deal with it at that time, and we'll make the best decision possible. But in talking to both the athletes, they both wanted a quick turnaround. So, this works into their favor as well, is what they're telling me. So
thanks, everyone.
Question for Lyoto Machida. Is this a fight that you wanted, or you just let the matchmakers put it together for you?
Definitely this fight I want, because these fights could have were supposed to happen back in the days, but there was a lot of buzz between this fight, me and Chael, but didn't happen back in the days, and now I have a chance. So as soon as the Bellator give me the opportunity, offer me this name, so I said I'm ready. I'm down to fight Chael for sure. He's a tough opponent. For me, he's a legend in this sport as well. I have a lot of respect for him, but I know that in the day of the fight, so the biggest respect that I can give to him is give my best and do whatever I can do and bring this victory.
And, one for Chael Sonnen. You mentioned the history he has with Henderson and Couture. How do you plan to fight? His style has been called elusive. How do you plan to face someone with his footwork and the karate base that he has? Yeah,
it drives me nuts. I've seen all of his fights. Nobody wants to fight wrestlers. That you just fight them when you have to. He's like the wrestler killer. From the two you named to Munoz to Bader to Rashad. And I don't know why. I've watched him 20 times. I stayed up until 3 in the morning watching him last night. I cannot figure out why nobody can close that distance and get their hands on him. And it's a hard one. It is a hard, for all the points you said. He moves constantly. You step in, he steps back. You can never close that distance. Nobody can. I watched John Jones fail, for 9 minutes at it. It's one of those really tough things. So that's the intrigue. I'm saying the complaints. I'm saying the things that are going to stress me and keep me up and motivate me for the next couple of months. But that's also the intrigue, trying to figure that out, trying to deal with somebody. I don't have anybody in the practice room that moves like Machida. You kind of have one shot at it. It's a very different style.
Oh, Scott, I have a question. Is this going to be Bellator NYC, or is this a numbered event? Like, what's the reason behind that? Because I've been seeing some outlets call it Bellator 222.
Yeah, it will be a numbered event.
It will be a numbered
Yes.
event? So is this technically Bellator 222?
Yes, I believe that's the correct number.
Okay, cool.
We do have a lot of fights going on.
Yeah, for sure.
And I understand why you're asking. Because in Europe, we don't necessarily put a number attached to it. We just call it Bellator, Dublin, Bellator, London. So I understand why you asked that question. But this will be a numbered event.
And the last time you came to NYC was in 2017. How often could we expect events here in New York City? Does the right fights have to happen, or are we going to see maybe once a year? How often do you?
Yeah, I mean, we would love to come once every year, once every 18 months, and it really is based on us putting the big fights together. And this year we went from, compared to last year, 22 events to 30 events around the world. And so we want to make sure that we bring a quality event to New York City, which you got to bring your best game. And we have a couple other fights that we're going to announce maybe sometime next week that will be amazing matchups. So to your point, I would say at least once every 18 months. Dylan and the MSG group has been very good to work with, and they're really good partners. So we look forward to going back to MSG.
And ideally, if everything goes right with Rory and Fitch, would Neiman Gracie versus the winner of that fight be the co-main event, or do you have something else planned for this card?
Yeah, I mean, right now, listen, the main event is Chael and Lyoto. That's the main event, and the Rory McDonald fight. Whether he wins or loses, or Fitch wins or loses, we'll see what happens, and then that'll be the co-main event.
And for Chael, you mentioned how Lyoto has beaten a few of your teammates. Has Dan Henderson and Randy Couture reached out about this booking and gave you any tips on fighting Lyoto?
No. Dan Henderson's a tough one to talk to. I called him before I was getting ready to fight a guy named Michael Bisping. It was the night before, and he didn't know who my opponent was. He didn't know when the fight was. He asked me if it was a championship fight. I was not the champion. I was only claiming to be, and he was in the division. It surprised me that he didn't know that. So a guy named Anderson Silva was actually the champion. So no, I have Dan Henderson. Barely remember he fought Machida, but I will reach out to those guys. I'll reach out to them and see what the problem was. I know as far as closing the distance, it was a bigger problem for Randy. He just said the guy was so elusive. Every time I moved, he was gone. So I'll definitely talk to them, but I mean, I've been watching Machida for years. He had referenced it earlier, but we were supposed to fight a number of years ago, and it was for less than 24 hours. I got a call around noon. Later that night, I go into the gym. I'm thinking about Machida. We're starting to come up with strategy. I remember it being a stressful night. Go, golly, of anybody they could give me that's a whole different problems, because we don't have anybody in my gym that trains like that. You really just have one crack to figure this guy out, and it's live on TV with your shirts off. And next day I got up, got a phone call, and the fight was off. And I remember thinking, good, I'm glad that fight's off. That's not what I said publicly, but I was thinking, I'm glad that fight's off. And I didn't see him coming this time around. I thought he had business with Gegard. I thought that Gegard was going out to London, and you know, if he wins his championship, he's going right into Machida. I just didn't see that. I thought that my sights were getting set somewhere else, but here we are.
So are you stressed now that it's booked, or?
I don't mean that in a negative way. I don't mean that in a cowardly way. But yes, there is a stress that comes when something is booked, whoever it is. But he is a very different style. You know, even when my teammates fought him, I did make that excuse for them. I thought, well, you had one crack at it. We have nobody in the gym that trains like he does. You have one crack to figure out this weird puzzle that is Machida style, and it happens to be live on television. And I really respect his career. I know I'm building him up a little bit right now, but he's a guy that I watched and just thought, wow, this guy has really done a lot, you know, particularly for the genesis of martial arts, which is karate. Nobody put him on the map except for Machida.
And for Machida, I guess, did you get the same call and you know, back in the UFC to fight Chael, and how are you feeling now that, you know, this fight is happening?
So I'm so excited for this fight, and Chael is so smart. So he gave me a lot of compliments as a part of his strategy, you know. and he can make me fool of myself, and I can relax too much, and he taking advantage of everything. So I got to be careful, but so definitely Chael is one of the toughest opponents that I'm gonna face. He's a legend in this sport, and on top of that, so I don't even need to know anything. He knows how to promote the fight. They're just gonna be here. So I like this guy. This guy is amazing, man.
And for Dylan, you know, you've made a name for yourself in MMA and the jiu-jitsu world as well. But you are 1-0. What's it like being, you know, next to, you know, guys like Chael Sonnen and Lyoto Machida, who've, you know, been around for a while and are big names in the sport?
Yeah, it's really humbling. I was saying this yesterday to Chael. Like, growing up, I watched him. I watched Machida, obviously. And then I live a block away from Madison Square Garden, so it's an amazing feeling. But, you know, I put myself in this position. Everybody likes to hate on me. You know, it's not mentally easy to do the things I do, to do all the media I do. You know, everybody shies away from it. So I feel good, but I deserve to be here.
For Lyoto, you're going to be 41 when this fight happens. How do you stay motivated physically and mentally at this point?
So when I moved to Bellator, for me, everything's different now. Everything's like I just started my career. So I have a new motivation. And for me, I have different opponents, different approach here. And I try to feed my motivation through that, you know, and I train every day. I want to be one of the best in this sport. In order to be like that, I gotta be very motivated and ready for any challenge in my career.
And Chael, if I may, the same question. You know, as you get older in life, how do you stay motivated physically, mentally?
I love it. I love this sport. It's the only game that I know how to play. I'm a huge fan of the sport. You know, it's a real honor to get these questions and be up here with Machida, but I'm sitting 2 doors down from a guy that's almost ruined the entire Grand Prix in Neiman Gracie. You know, 3 years ago, nobody knew if Neiman was his first name or his last name. He comes in. The media was calling Ed Ruth the dark horse, but the guys in the locker room, we were calling Ed Ruth the favorite. We thought this was going to be his breakthrough moment. You know, Neiman outstruck him. He out-grappled him, but for me as a fan, he out-conditioned him. He out-pushed him. He out-gritted him. He simply wanted it more. And now he's going to be fighting for a world championship. He's 2 wins away from $1 million. I mean, I think that's something really special, right? I don't just say it. I think that that's something really special as you come along with this company and you watch the sport and you get to watch the next generation of guys. But that also motivates me. I go to these fights, I call these fights, I watch these guys. I'm learning new stuff all the time. The style's changing, it's evolving. There was a day when wrestling was enough. Those days were 20 years ago. And, you know, to evolve with it and get new training partners. I used to always have problems on the ground with submissions. I just got my black belt in jiu-jitsu under Fabiano Schurner. I'm very proud of that. But the point that I make, there's always new things to learn. And if you don't learn and you don't evolve, then all of a sudden you get this guy that 2 years ago you didn't know who he was, and now he's about to fight for a world championship. I think that's very exciting. I don't want to miss the boat. I don't want to be left behind.
Thank you. Congratulations on the black belt.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Heather.
Couldn't have happened to a better guy.
Heather, your MMA debut was obviously in New York at the Garden. You've boxed all over New York, but coming back here, you know, been away from MMA for a year. You had 2 boxing matches last year. Back in New York, just, you know, you have that experience now. Just sort of talk us through the experience of that fight in New York at home and now coming back and doing the same.
I'm sure there's really nothing like fighting in the Garden. I've done it. I won my world title here, won my Golden Gloves here, had my MMA debut here, so it's really special. And when I heard that Bellator was coming back, I had to get on the card. It's like, I don't care that I haven't fought in a year. I have to get on the card. So it means everything to me to be here, put out in front of my city, and get back in the sport that I love.
Max, I was wondering if you could maybe take us through the back here in the back. Hey, boss. You're up there on the stage with you know, some of the all-time greats, and a lot of people are going to get their first introduction to you. So can you talk a little bit about the opportunity? You're going to make your Bellator debut. You're going to fight in Madison Square Garden. You're in New York, in Times Square, doing a press conference. What's this all been like for you?
It's all pretty surreal. I'm not too great at the speaking parts, but I'm just here to fight. So
just grab tips from the guy next to you, right?
Right. Oh yeah. I let these guys do all the talking.
Have you thought about the opportunity for starters, and then second of all, the change in venue and the change in date? How did that affect you?
Of course, it adds to it, but I've fought in barns with a dang hay bale ring. Like 1-1-2 double leg still worked well. So to be here finally though it's kind of crazy.
And for Lyoto, can you talk a little bit about why do this fight right now? Why would you move up to 205 at this point? We obviously know you came here at 185, but was it just the opportunity to fight Chael and nothing more for the reason to not stay at 185 and look for a title shot there?
No, since the beginning when I signed with Bellator, I said that since the beginning that I would like to fight in 205 and 185. So I like to be busy. In order to be busy, I have to fight in different categories sometimes. So for me, to fight in 205, it's a great opportunity as well, because a long time ago was my last fight in 205. Now it's time to figure out again how the thing's going in 205.
Is going after a title in either division something you're still thinking about? And if so, does toggling back and forth between the two divisions, does that worry you that it could take a little bit longer to get a title? Of course, I would like to have the chance in both divisions. So 185, it's my division, but 205 as well. So I already fought Brian Beatty and Gerard Mousasi, and actually I won those fights. So for me, it's a matter of time to have these next opportunities. And then Chael, sort of the same question for you. Moving back down, in your case, I think, what did you weigh in last time out, 220 something? So is 205 going to be a bother for you this time around at this point in your career, going back to that weight?
Oh, no. I could make 205 probably in about 48 hours. But I like the discipline of it, quite frankly. Excuse me. You know, a lot of times as an athlete, if you don't have to get that extra run in, you don't get that extra run in. If you don't have to eat a little bit better. And no, I kind of missed making the weight. I kind of missed it just because it was really put you in the frame of mind. And to your question about the divisions, I think that's very fair. I don't know the answer, but I will predict for you that this sport is changing really rapidly. You know, Scott Coker was the one that very first came in and said, hey, we're going to do parity in the sport. If I got guys under contract and they want to fight, We'll put them wherever they want to agree. We'll do a catch weight if we need to. And now you're starting to see that go through the entire industry where guys are moving around. You're starting to see some parity and guys that want to get together and fight. And that's new to MMA. That's not new to fighting. The boxing's been doing that forever. So, you know, I think that Coker really started something in this sport, but it does give us major opportunity. You know, King Mo's had some great fights in this organization, but he's done it all over the board, and nobody ever questioned if he was a top contender if he officially made a championship weight class.
Question for Dylan. You've had a lot of interactions making a name for yourself publicly, sometimes negatively, sometimes positively on social media. But in most cases, it's also been with fighters who aren't in Bellator. Sometimes not by your own fault, obviously with the Nurmagomedov incident, but other fighters, there's been back and forth. You haven't had any sort of heat, for just to use a simple term, with any of the fighters here in Bellator. Is that by design? And if so, why not? Because it does, you know, give yourself a name, makes it easy to promote a fight. Why is that?
At this point right now, there was no one really, I think, like in my division, there's no one popular enough for me to even go at, you know. Most of them come at me and it's like, I don't even acknowledge it. So it's a waste of time when, you know, someone's down here and you're up here. So Ben Askren wanted to do something, and Scott Coker has done, like, he sent people to Risen before. So, I mean, we can make it happen. Why not be the first person? And I don't know, that's all. It doesn't really, it just happens. It's not like I do it out of design.
Just to follow up, I mean, if you want to grapple, there's a Gracie. If you want to wrestle, there's a Sonnen. And
yeah, I mean,
you know Sonnen would say something back if you wanted to.
I mean, why not? I guess if the money's right, I mean, we could do it all in one night. It doesn't matter to me. So if you want to go too, because you're kind of coming at me, I mean, you can come up with it. I mean, so whatever you want to do, man.
Yes, questions for Heather. Heather, you took a year off from MMA, as we said before. Have you been training in that time, working on your overall MMA game, or were you more focused on boxing because you had these fights?
I never stopped kickboxing. Like, I always do that for fun. I teach kickboxing. But my main focus up until my world title fight was boxing. So for most of the last year, I was only boxing to get ready for that fight. And then come December, there was talk of me fighting in February at Mohegan Sun. And we kind of went back and forth about if I was going to unify my belts or do that. So I started really training MMA as early as December. So I've been back in the flow of doing all the things.
Now, you won both of your boxing matches last year. You're still undefeated, but obviously you have a loss in MMA. Do you kind of almost feel more like you want to chase getting better in MMA because you've already conquered so many people and so much of your other sport?
No, there's still girls I want to fight in boxing, but the politics in boxing don't always allow for that to happen as quickly. And I don't feel like I need to avenge or prove anything in MMA. Like, a lot of people don't do what I do. I just one day was like, all right, I'll try to fight because I love to fight. I never said I was the best at MMA or chasing after anything. I love the challenge, right? I come out of a boxing ring and I'm like, let's see what I can do. So I never go in and expect too much. I just know I'm really tough and I want to beat the girl in front of me.
This question's for Scott. Scott, what are the stakes of this main event here? Like, where are they kind of, where do you see them going from here, if whoever wins?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's dependent on how some of the other fights unfold, right? Obviously, you know, when I think of Machida or Chael, I mean, I think about the big fighters we have at 185 or at 205. I mean, there's some big fights out there for these guys, and I think that we'll do them all. So, you know, it's whether it's Bader or Gegard, you know, it's we're gonna mix it up and put some of these fights together for the fans.
Any other questions?
Are we gonna break it down? Just one more thing. So tickets go on sale this Thursday to pre-sale. Go to Bellator.com, and on Friday is the on sale for the June 14th Madison Square Garden fight with Lyoto and Chael. Thank you. Okay, guys.
Yeah, if you guys just step off each of your respective sides.